Alright, morning. So I was looking at, I'm working on axle deep here, looking at the different stuff I need to take off, and I started labeling. But I'm just looking at kind of the harness in different areas where I need to disconnect it. So it's just looking like everything pretty much needs to come off, undone. But I found something I want to show you. So the whole reason I'm switching this thing out is the prior owner got into an accident with it and it bent the frame. And you can kind of see it where this is pushed in a little bit. Well, it caused a bigger problem than I thought. But it's luckily we're moving everything over because it'll be easy to fix then. But I did notice that you might be able to see it, the engine is tilted a little bit to one side and transmission is tilted, and I'm going to show you why. Going right up underneath here. So you can see this right here is the engine mount. Oh, I'm getting shit in my eyes. That's the engine mount. That is supposed to be connected to the engine block. And you can see right there, you can see the bolt. Let me see if I can set. Right there is broken off. One's broken off here inside the engine, and maybe even a couple other things. No, it looks like that's it. That's all the engine was connected. Thought maybe these two over here were, but so that's broken off in the engine. That one will be a little easier to get out just because it's sticking out from the engine block, but it broke the head off. What worries me though is this one right here is where the engine, one of the engine bolts to the mount goes into the block, and that busted off a piece of that right there. And so this plate right here is supposed to be up against the engine. And I did notice that the rubber mount up on the top there is kind of dry rotted. It looks like it's cracking, so it needed to be replaced anyways. But so very interesting. I mean, it kind of looks like there were bolts in those two, but I don't know. But that would be why the engine's tilted to one side. And yeah, I just wanted to show that. And so what I'm about ready to do is start taking the e-brake stuff off. I sprayed it with PB Blaster, and then I got to connect or disconnect all these wires going to the transfer case and going all the way down the line. Actually, that doesn't need to be taken off. I don't know, we'll have to see. I'll have to see where it disconnects from, because really this harness should all stay in place because it's connected to the frame. So I'm not sure. I mean, this is the we'll have to disconnect this. Sorry, I'm a little jumbly. We'll have to disconnect this from the body, which which means I'll have to take out the driver's seat. Oh no, I don't have to take out the driver's seat. It should be just right there. And then disconnect the actual lever. And I may disconnect those two and then raise it up to get a better view of the wiring in here. Because I may not have to disconnect all this stuff, but we'll see. Well, it has to disconnect somewhere, but it may be up there, or I can just disconnect it from the main harness. But it's probably between the firewall and the engine somewhere. But what I'll have to do is I'll disconnect the e-brake, disconnect the four-wheel drive lever, take that bracket off the body, and that should be it for underneath. And then somewhere in all this, it disconnects to that harness going back to the gas tank and the transfer case and all that, but I'm not sure which is which yet. I thought about disconnecting these up here, those, but the problem with that is it's still connected. The fuse box right here, wiring goes down to the starter, the alternator it's connected to, and it continues to go, and there's might be a connection somewhere in the back. There needs to be, but yeah. And hopefully I don't have to remove anything from the CPU or the computer, but yeah, that's quite the interesting thing I found. So you can't see it from here, the engine mount. I mean, you can see that it's twisted in the big bolt right here, and you can see the dry rot on it, on the engine mount there. But yeah. I need to. Of course, this thing's gonna twist. Hold on, let me set you down for a minute. This thing is having a devil of a time. Won't turn. I even got a crescent wrench, or adjustable wrench, I mean, and it just will not turn. So that sucks. I'm gonna keep trying, but pause the video, see if I can't get that loose. Yeah, I can't break that loose. I'm rounding off the nut that's on there, so I'm gonna have to get a new one. So what I'll go ahead and do is cut it right here, and these are loose enough. I should be able to slip those out. Right, those little metal tabs right here. I don't really want to change these out because it's a pain to mess with the old calipers, or not the calipers, but the old system for the e-brake. And then this one's going to be more difficult. Well, I don't have to remove this one. It's mostly just these that I got to remove. So so I don't have to mess with this. So that's a good thing. But it's pretty loose there, so that should be able to disconnect there to get the new piece. And they're not very expensive. I want to say it was like 15-20 bucks for it on Amazon. And as long as I can get these out, it shouldn't be a problem. It looks like they're pretty loose and not rusted in. So let's cut that and then try to work these out. Alright, so I got it off. I had to use the big grinder because I couldn't find the little screw that holds the thing, and I'm missing on my smaller one. I'm missing this part. I just got it too, so I know I put it somewhere to try to save it so I don't lose it, because the last one I had I lost too. I'm gonna have to get a 12mm. What I'm gonna try to do is use a closed end, slip it over top of there to work that out. 11's the biggest I brought down here, so might need a 12 or a 13. I'll bring both down here and then try to work it out. Alright, so I ended up using a 13mm, and like I said, I slipped it over, and it's a tight fit, but it'll go all the way down. Squeeze these little tabs so that way you can pull them out of this bracket here. And what I found in other Jeeps is you can see that it's a little rusty, but it was able to come loose. Sometimes they're rusted so bad that it might just be easier to cut it off and replace them. And but messing with all the rear brakes can be a pain, unless you, now if you're planning on converting it to like a regular, or doing the brake conversion, which I don't plan on doing. Really, you don't need these at all, so you could just cut them out to make it a little easier. But yeah, so that should be good. This we won't have to mess with because it's connected to the tub. That's disconnected. So now we're just going to go down the line and look at different things. Well, the next thing I need to do is this one over here. I don't know if it's easier to get to that from the other side. What a pain. But I don't know, it's a little bit different system than Gemini that I was messing with. I think in Gemini, I don't know, but you might be able to loosen that bolt and that rod might slip out of there. I'm not sure on that. I don't think Gemini had that. I don't think it did, but I'm gonna try it with this bolt. It's starting to run out. Spray it with some PB Blaster, and then while that's soaking, I'm gonna go back up top and start removing all these and labeling them. I'm going to remove the AC system. I'll remove this. I don't want to damage it. I've already bent it a little to get it apart. This is connected to the engine, or to the compressor down here, but with this, got to remove move the bracket with these two nuts right there, and then remove these two. And then I'll remove these. So basically I'm going to start getting rid of this so I can see the wiring a little better underneath. Alright, so these two nuts right here are just 10 millimeter. Oh, and I can't get to that one. So let me show you. I removed the one piece of the AC line. I may not even put this back in because I don't use the AC. It's more of a summer vehicle, and I usually just leave the top off the whole summer. But get something like these. I can't even remember where I got it. Maybe Harbor Freight or something like that. And you push in it, and it releases a little like spring underneath. You can kind of see the spring in there. But what that spring does is it tightens around this little flare. And what this does is it spreads the spring out, so that way you can pull this out. You can see it just pulled out. They're not always this easy, just so you know. And I'm going to leave the little tools in place so I know which ones I used, because I tend to look. Not that one, I need an extension. Let's go. And that way I can get it. Just dropped the tool. Anyways, let's see, this should come right out. I'm not pulling on the wire. The wire's still connected. I probably should have disconnected that. And this comes right out, and then that pops right off. So, and then we'll move this out of the way. And then right now I'm going to label everything. Even though I know where a lot of it goes, it'll just be faster when it comes time to put it back together. Because Jeep makes it so like all the fittings are different. So you can't get them mixed up, but it does make it faster to still label them. But before I go any further, close that up. These right here, make sure, I always, if I don't put them back in the exact spots I got them, so I'm going to put these back. So I may not use them. Alright, so what I ended up doing in here is just cutting the bolts off. I believe it was a 10 millimeter bolts. This one's, the plate on the back is a little different than the older ones, because these bolts screwed right into that plate. Here it's got like a I don't know, some strange washer. But I went ahead and cut them off. I gouged into the tub a little bit, but we'll clean that all up and get rid of some of this rust probably. Although I don't know if I can get, oh, the driver's seat will be easy to get out. It's the passenger seat I might have an issue with. I can't fold it all the way up, because you got to fold it all the way up to get to the rear bolts back here. So I'll have to figure that out if I'm gonna, I was thinking of bed lining the tub, so that way all the salt water-ish. I probably won't drive this in the winter, but still I want to try to protect it as much as possible. But let's go underneath. So I removed the linkage right there. I just squeezed the screwdriver in there and it popped right out. Now getting it back in might be a little bit of a pain, but let's see if I can. Yeah, see the plate back here on the older ones, it's a little different than these. Let me see if I can. But I do have it loose now. Had these little washers in between, although the washers weren't very good. Trying to see if I can. Alright, so here's the back side. Let me see if I can see it in the screen to show you. Yeah, so it's got this crazy like washer in the rubber, and all they were doing is spinning. So it was, yeah, it doesn't even look like the bolt in there moved at all. So it just basically spun this horrible design. Would have much rather the older ones probably than this. So we'll have to figure out how to remount that when it comes time, but it's loose, and I think we're ready to lift this tub up. I just got to find everything to do it. Sweep up in here. It's getting harder to roll underneath there because I'm dirt crumbling down on me and rust, and so it just needs to be cleaned up. Alright, so let's lift this up, and I'm not sure if I'll do too much lifting it up after I lift it up a little bit. I just want to get a good look and get an idea. So alright, so I lifted it a little bit and it started putting strain on these wires up here. So I lowered it a little bit, disconnected. Also disconnected from the computer here, which I don't like to do because you damage these pins and you're fucked, man. But just be careful. And then I'd like to put some dielectric grease in there anyways. But let's go ahead and raise it a little more. Other thing that it was pulling on is the ground wire right here. It's connected to a bolt right up underneath here, and I put the bolt back, but it was pulling on that. Let's see if it's pulling on anything else over here. What sucks about this, I use this as a light, but when I'm trying to lift something up, I don't have the light, so kind of wandering with a flashlight. All right, looks like I'm gonna have to disconnect this as well, because this goes into the wiring on this side of the engine. See, and this is a little different because the older TJs, it didn't have all that up here. When removing these, one thing to be careful with is these red tabs. You don't want to break them. It looks like that tab's already open, in the open position. I just use a screwdriver to push it over. and it doesn't go very far, but what it does is it holds the wiring in place and the connection. So, and another thing I like to do while I'm disconnecting everything is look at the terminals, make sure none of them are burnt, which they all look good on that side. And let me get the other one removed. I'll look at it and then continue to raise the engine up, or the tub up. Alright, so I got it disconnected. Gave me a devil of a time, but it's good. Other thing I had to disconnect was, I believe this is going to the gas pedal. It connects right here, goes through there and loops around. It goes in right here. Your Jeep might have 3 of them. So some of the older Jeeps had one for the cruise control, and another one I believe was for the transmission. That's why you got the 3 holes. So they didn't change the bracket, but they reduced it down to 1. However, that reminded me that the transmission, because remember, I don't know if I put it in the previous video I posted. Here, let me get situated down here. But if you look up to where the gear shift is, all it is that bottom thing, and then the older ones came down from there. Well, in this one, it goes out the front firewall. Comes out right here, so it's this one right here, and it goes to the transmission right here. So we got to disconnect right there and remove this plate. And then so that way we can free it from the tub. And I don't think it's gonna snag on anything. Might snag on this right here, but and then we should be pretty free. I'm not seeing where the wiring harness looks like it's coming from up top. I'm not seeing where it's connected into here yet, but I'll go ahead and get the transmission connection removed. And this moves easily. I just shifted it. It should be in neutral right there, so we don't want to move that. But if we find it's in gear and can't roll it, at least we know what to mess with. So be careful not to bump that out of place. Alright, I got that plate removed. So to remove it from this part right here, I just used a screwdriver, popped it off, and these are 2 13mm bolts. And now it's loose. Doesn't look like it'll snag on anything, but I'm going to pull it up to the top and maybe zip tie it into something. And then I think we're good to lift this some more. Alright, a couple things I almost missed. Got to disconnect your power, your brake lines from here. Usually I go from here, but I was starting to strip those. If you do up here, you got to remove this bracket right here. So I ended up removing these 3 from the bottom piece, and 13mm wrench, and then 11. Both of those are 11mm. And then the steering wheel column, you got to remove. It's a 13mm bolt, and then it'll slide right off of that thing. Sometimes you have to coax it a little bit. Just this bolt right here, we'll put that back in there so we don't lose it. Alright, so I do have it off. The frame in the front looks really clear. However, I ran into an issue in the back. All these frickin' emissions lines coming from the tank to whatever doodad is up in here. So I don't know if I can just remove it, and I broke this one off. So this one's a very short one. So make sure you come in, because now I got to find this whole big piece right here. Not even sure. I mean, it's a big hose going up in there. I don't understand what it probably goes to this. I don't know. It's freaking annoying that they got all this shit in here. Let me get a flashlight. I don't even know if I can get that piece, to be honest with you. Ooh. Yeah, see, it broke off of that right there. In fact, it's tight right now. I need to do something with it. But they've got all these freaking lines, man, coming in here. Just, they squeezed it in back here somehow. Freaking ridiculous. Emissions control stuff, in my opinion, has gotten out of hand a little bit. It's just crazy. I gotta lower this a little bit, and I don't know if I can just take those off. They don't look like they come off real easy. Ooh. Looks like you're supposed to remove it by this and by that. So and of course this broke off. Like, this was just rusted on, man. It's didn't want to replace this plate, but gonna have to now. And then also remove the gas cap from here. That's just a Phillips head. Yeah, let's lower this and then get it disconnected. Alright, so I got it apart, and that clip was holding it in. However, it broke while I was, for the bigger one, it broke while I was trying to get it out, which sucks. And this one had a devil of a time getting out, but it came out eventually. And here's a piece of it right here. But to replace this part, you have to replace the whole assembly line. And I looked it up, and it's this part right here, $306. So that doodad was a $300 boo-boo of breaking it. If you know of a better way of fixing that, I have half in mind, just to use some JB Weld on it and see how that goes. but that sucks. I mean, the part's still available. The only thing I don't know, let's see if I can zoom in here. Yeah, see that part I broke up there isn't on this assembly. It's on the bottom part. Actually, it doesn't look right. Oh, you know what? Yeah, it's right. So, because it comes with this and it goes to right here, so it's got the same kind of clip system right there as it does up above. So yeah, that's interesting, but yeah, it is what it is, I guess. Hate saying that, but I have the tub free and clear. I don't see anything. So it's nice. I like how they did the harness different for this model year, because it seemed like it was less to take this bad boy off than older models, except for the evap system in the corner over here that I broke. But as far as the wiring harness, it just seems like it's a lot better on this than the older one, because that 2001, just a couple of years older than this one, I had to remove all of these fittings across in the transmission and in the transfer case. So I do have to remove this though, the fuse box from. I might just go ahead and remove this piece right here, since I got to remove this wire anyways, and then that's the only thing I got left to do on here. But I'm going to end the video on this for today. Got quite a bit accomplished. Oh man, I don't like that. I don't know why it did that, but it ain't going nowhere. Hi Daisy. Yeah, but we got a lot accomplished, and from here I'm not sure how I'm gonna get it from out under the frame. I should have backed it in and did it that way, but I wasn't thinking. But I may have to drop it down again and actually, you know what, I got a little bit of an idea of what I'm going to do. But anyways, have a good day guys, and I'll see you in the next video.